Hey everyone, thank you for checking out Chewy Churo. I really appreciate it, guys. Just coming back today with some more reviews on comics. Actually, today's gonna be a little bit different because I am adding a manga in there. So if you've been watching this channel for a little bit, first of all, you know the name has changed. It was something different before. But secondly, and more importantly, I used to review mangas pretty consistently, and I really hadn't picked up one that I liked in a little while. And with mangas, especially because sometimes they're a little bit thicker, it takes a little bit longer to get through than just like a one issue comic book. But secondly, as far as I'm concerned, if I pick it up and I've read through like 30-40 pages and it's just not getting my attention, or just I don't care about the characters or what's going on, for the most part I'll just put it down and keep moving and won't look back. And I used to have this urge, like, okay, I started reading it, I need to finish it. Don't do that to yourself if you've been doing that. Whether it's a book, a manga, a comic, whatever, if you don't like it, really within the first handful of pages, I would say that within the first quarter of a book, however long it may be, just put it down. It for the most part, it doesn't get any better. And if it's really just, hey, this got a good ending, just find out the ending. That being said, though, today I am going to be reviewing The Dissolving Classroom. This is by Junji Ito. So I actually had not heard of this book, and I really wasn't even aware that this was out. I read a lot of Junji or Junji Ito, and I like a lot of his stuff. I have collections of his items and different books, and I still think Uzumaki is one of my favorite. But this one just blew me away, and it's I didn't go out looking for this book. I actually just happened to be at a shop and I saw it, and I was like, let me go ahead and pick that up. It would just blew me away. I had no expectations coming into it. So the premise for this is the two kids on the front of this book. Those are brother and sister. Everywhere they go, weird, terrible things start happening, and primarily people start melting. And it seems weird, and that immediately, even by just looking at the cover, that this is going to be some sort of body horror book, right? A lot of the Junji Ito stuff is, but you can tell, and the cover on this book is really, really awesome, and that's really what caught my attention. But specifically the brother and sister, when you can actually feel the book, they kind of stand out. Like it's a different, it's almost like someone was trying to do a 3D print. Anyways, it's really cool. But when it starts off, they are moving to this new town. They're going to school, or at least the brother is. And when he introduces himself to the class, he just immediately starts apologizing. And nobody knows why. And at first they kind of think it's just a prank or something. And it, whatever. They just move on. One of the girls there sort of takes a liking to him, and she starts maybe following him around. And she notices that he's just apologizing profusely to everybody. And not just a sorry, excuse me kind of thing. He's getting on his knees and kissing their feet and stuff like that. And then the bullies pick up on that, and they start picking on him. And instead of fighting back or anything like that, he just immediately starts groveling and kissing their feet and hugging their legs and telling them how sorry he is. And she doesn't really know why this is happening. So one day she's walking home from school, and this little girl pops out and chases her down the street, scares the hell out of her. And actually, because she's running away from this little girl, she gets hit by a bus. And the next thing she knows, she's in the hospital. And he comes in to say, that was my sister that you saw. I'm sorry that happened. Blah, blah, blah. And he starts this whole apologizing routine again. And he just gets really adamant about apologizing and coming by every day to apologize to her. And he apologizes to her parents, and then it just keeps on going and going. And it's very weird, very odd, and it's what I've explained to you is really only the first maybe 20 pages. I don't even know if it's that much. The book itself is not very long. It is broken into, I believe, 4 different short stories about the same brother and sister. And I'm kind of struggling to decide how much more I want to give you of it without spoiling any of it. But I'm going to kind of give you the gist of the first story, and then you can go from there, because there are some twists, some turns, some really good reveals. And I will tell you right now that the ending was, I thought, really great. I don't want to spoil it, so I'm not gonna give too much away, but it is really, really good. It's something that, while it has been done before, I don't see it enough as far as like the final outcome of these of books, horror books or movies or anything. It's really, really good, and I just sorry, because I know I just keep saying it's good, but it is one of those things I can't tell you too much about, because it will ruin the ending and it'll give away the rest of the book. But just take my word for it that you want to read this book and you want to get to the end of it just for this different, it's not necessarily a twist ending, it's just a different take on horror, in my opinion. But secondly, after you finish the book, I believe that this, like the brother and sister, the short stories, is probably about 150 pages. It's not too terribly long, and if you're used to reading manga, you know the pages are pretty small and they're just little blurbs, so you can really read that whole book in one sitting if you really wanted to get through it. I kind of just pieced through it here and there, so I maybe took like 2 or 3 sittings to finish it. But after you're done with that, it doesn't just immediately end. There's actually another like 3 or 4 stories afterwards that are additional short stories, and they're really short stories. They're like 1 to 2 pages long each. So I think Junji just kind of threw those in there just to put them out there. Maybe short stories he had in his head, but they're not deep enough to make like a whole book on. So look out for that, and those are actually pretty good, especially because they're so short. It gives you like a good premise. But back to the original story. So the girl that is somewhat involved, or she's been kind of following this brother, she finds out that the brother and sister are living alone. Their parents are not there. So she doesn't know how they just moved here. And then she starts to kind of piece it together, and then the sister actually just comes out and tells her that the brother has made a deal with the devil, and that he basically summoned the devil when he was a child, and the devil gave him these powers, these abilities, and also possessed his sister, which is a little girl, and she likes to, I guess you'd say, like, eat humans, but it's only after they dissolved. So the brother is like the cause of this dissolving. So there's more into it than that. And at the end, he gives you kind of like the prologue of why he took this idea and where he got it from. And I thought that was also really, really cool. And it's something that I think should be maybe touched on more. But there you go. You have the general premise of this, guys. I cannot recommend this enough. I know usually I give you like at least one book that I really, really like, and this week it is this book. Like I said, it's a pretty short book. It can be a little hard to get your hands on. So on my website, chewychudo.com, I have one in stock right now, but I am telling you, I struggled to find this book. I only found it at one place, and it was a very like niche area. So your best bet is probably trying to go to like either, if you don't want to go to my website, that's totally fine. You're probably just as good going to eBay or maybe like a comic shop or a manga shop if you have one. The only thing is those shops, you're going to have to probably call them first. Don't just go over there because there were not a lot of prints of these made. And on eBay, if you decide to go that route, you will definitely find one on there, but there's only like 4 or 5 on eBay. And the 4 or 5 that are there's maybe like 2 that are a little bit more. They're like $25. And the other 3 are selling for like $45 to $50. And I think a lot of that is just because the print run was relatively small. There's not a lot of word about this book yet. But I promise you, if people pick it up the way I am thinking they're going to pick it up, once the kind of word of mouth gets going, the price is probably going to go up, or they're going to make another print of it. But that is our first review for today. The next one second to get to it, I wanted to go over here, is going to be an actual comic. And it's going to be Not All Robots. So Not All Robots, I knew when it first came out, just by the cover, I knew I wanted to read it, or at least, get the general premise of what was going on here. So in this story, it reminds me a lot of like an Isaac Asimov kind of story. And yes, it is similar to movies like I Am Robot or the book I Am Robot, with a little bit of a twist though. So in this one, the robots, yes, they are the helpers, just like in I Am Robot, where they live in the house with the family, they maybe cook for them or whatever they do for them, and that's, their role. But in addition to that, robots are actually the only ones working in this world. So as humans, they no longer have to work. You have a robot that I guess you have to buy. It doesn't really explain all of that yet, but you have a robot. You send that robot to get a job or to work for you, and then those work, the money that's made from that work or the credits that you get from that go to the family, and that's how families support themselves, feed themselves, and they don't have to work. Their robots do it all. So that's kind of where you start off at. This one robot has an empathy chip, and actually all robots are supposed to have them, but robots have kind of become like sentient and self-aware, and they start taking those out. And so a lot of them are starting to get very disenfranchised with this whole, like, we're doing all the work and the humans are just enjoying it all, and what the hell's going on. And there's even like talk shows in this world where the host is a robot, and he's interviewing like humans and saying how bad they are, and they're just taking advantage of robots and they destroyed the world and all this other stuff. And the background of this, if you are not familiar with this, so like in Asimov's books and movies, they live kind of like in a utopia where it's like this, we're way into the future, very advanced, a lot of robots and all kinds of stuff. In this book, it is in the future obviously, but it's more of like a dystopia, and everything has been destroyed, and the only way that humans still survive on Earth is in like domes, like bubble domes. And if you leave that dome, the world is so polluted and terrible that it's just like uninhabitable. So those domes have to be maintained by the robots, which makes it very tense because the humans are now totally reliant on the robots, not only to make their money, but even to like create the air and the atmosphere and things that they need to live. So to me, it was a really good book, especially because I didn't have like high hopes going into this. I just picked it up based off of cover and maybe like a general idea that it had something to do with robots. It's really, really good. It's not any sort of superhero or anything like that book, as you can tell by my review here. But if you like sci-fi stuff and you like this kind of like robots versus humanity, setup, like a Terminator or a robot kind of thing, you will definitely love this. And there's a lot of things that have been added to it that take the great concepts of movies like Terminator and I Am Robot or those books, and they bring it up to modern times and modern concerns with things that have happened over the years since those books were made. So I really, really like this. Like I said, I don't like it as much as the Dissolving Classroom, but it's a lot cheaper. It's a lot easier to find. I have it, it's a 10% discount all the time, like I do for most of the books I have on chewychudo.com. But if you go anywhere else, obviously it's going to be, your $3.99 regular comic price. So you won't spend a whole bunch of money on it. But I really, really liked it. Some things besides reviews, though, guys, I just want to go over some news for comics. So Nocterra, if you have not been keeping up with it, and I've done several reviews on Nocterra, or at least 2 that I can remember off the top of my head. Nocterra is really, really good. I've liked it since the beginning. I read issue 1 when it first came out, and I immediately picked up like 5 copies of number 1 for my own personal collection, just because I really liked it and I thought it was going to blow up. It has gone through its first story arc, so number 6 is actually the last one in the story arc. But it's really, not just really good, but it is very adaptable. It's very adaptable to the big screen or to like a TV series. And so if you don't already know this and you haven't heard any other videos, Nocterra is a woman named Val, and the whole story is about her and her brother, and they live in the world where one day basically everything just plunged into darkness, and there was no reasoning for it. There was no warnings, nothing like that. Everything just went into darkness, which sounds bad, but on top of that, if you are in the dark too long, you will transform into what they call a shade, which is like this big monster thing that's like a big shadow creature. And so your people that are living in this world are constantly trying to stay in the light, and they're constantly trying to travel to different like refuge centers to be around the light, be around other people. And then you have people like Val, who is a truck driver, and they need to drive from one place to the other just to keep supplies running and all that kind of stuff. But obviously in between places, it's very dangerous. And it's not just humans, it's also animals. Anything living that stays in the dark, so animals, plants, all that kind of stuff, get turned into shades, and they transform into different kind of shades, with humans being the worst. So it's really cool. It's a lot of action. It's very easy to follow. Again, very relatable, very adaptable, and they have just now started talking about some sort of production on this being in the works. So it has not been optioned just yet, but it is being pitched around, and it looks like this is going to be something probably sooner than later. So I would even really venture to say by the end of the year, we're probably going to hear that somebody has picked this up. Now, I think it's better suited for like a series, whether it's Netflix or on TV, but it's because it's an ongoing comic, and it's one of these things that's, I don't see this thing being wrapped up in, like one season or one movie especially. I see this as an ongoing thing for a while, and in the first 6 issues, they've even opened up more avenues and more things that they want to talk about and explore and discover in this world. So I can see this being like a long-term TV series. And if that's the case, guys, you want to grab 1 through 6 as early as possible. But obviously, if you can get like number 1, and I believe it's number 3 that they introduce a character. It's number 3 or number 4, so don't quote me on that. Where they introduce a new character that becomes very important. Pretty sure it's number 3. That being said, though, you're going to want to go out and get those books as soon as you can while they're still like $4 a piece, because once that word comes out, it's going to be more expensive. Some other, I guess, spec notes here. Riri Williams has been confirmed. She will be in the next Black Panther movie. You've probably already heard about this already. She was introduced in an Iron Man comic back in like 2016 as the kid and kind of the new heir apparent to Iron Man. And then Adventure Time, Fiona and Cake. It's HBO is going to give them their own series. It's 6 episodes, I believe. But the comic came out with them way back when Adventure Time was still going on with Jake and Finn, and it was really only like a 6-issue run. So those comics right now are still like $10, but once the show comes out with HBO, it might be worth a little bit more. The comics, cartoons, it's a little bit harder to spec on, especially something that's like Adventure Time, like an ongoing series. Because a lot of times they don't really pop. You might go from like $10 to like $20. And even at that, you got to really time those things right. Like Rick and Morty, the Pickle Rick comic book went from $5 to $10 for a little while. And then it kind of went back down to $5, and then it got hot again and it went up to like $20. And I think right now it's back down to like $8. So it's kind of a timing issue, but you may want to look for I think it's Ironheart is the first Riri Williams, sorry, I cannot say that name, comic, number 1. And out of all the variants of things, there is a Scotty Young variant. It's probably the most affordable if you can find it in the wild somewhere, but it gives you the best return as far as selling it like on eBay or anything like that. Adventure Time, same thing, like I said, guys, if you can find one, great. I wouldn't go hunt it down too hard, though. Don't pay too much for it, because you're going to need to really pay attention to that one and time it down right. So that's some news, guys. Thank you again for watching this channel. Hopefully you liked one of the reviews I've done, or maybe you can get some spec out of this. But thanks again, guys. Have a great day.